between energy consumption and productivity, as we try to illustrate by this ISO cost curve for existing known technologies. This is an empirical study. The energy consumption is on the vertical axis, and the productivity or current density on the horizontal. By moving up and down on the ISO curve, the economics of the operation is kept constant. The optimal point can therefore, to a certain extent, be found dependent on the local power price and construction cost conditions. Hydro's existing HAL 300 technology, as you can see in the upper right-hand corner there, is a very high productivity cell, but has a moderate energy consumption. So Hydro's HAL 4E has significantly reduced energy consumption while still maintaining high productivity, and has brought us to a new ISO cost curve. And we are striving to improve this further in the new Ultra version. And this shows a cross-section of a HAL Hero electrolyzer cell with the current coming in via the anode and out via the cathode, where the blue area is produced aluminium. The cell is operating with a current of 450,000 ampere, which probably then would equal 20,000 times as high as you would have in your homes. And this shows the main areas where we're focusing on energy savings. There's a very complex relationship between the various operational parameters. Changing one parameter, such as amperage or voltage, will impact on the heat balance and very strong magnetic fields, and requires rebalancing of the cell to maintain stable operations. The HAL 4E technology is based on the existing HAL Hero process, so it's not a step change, it's not a breakthrough technology. And we have a lot of improvements to reduce voltage losses, improve heat management, and improve process stability. In combination, this constitutes a step change in technology. In addition to CO2, the off-gas from the cell also contains fluorides that needs to be cleaned and removed and reused. 50% of the heat loss in the cell is contained in this off-gas that is taken to a gas treatment center. So the off-gas normally has a relatively low temperature of 130 to 150 degrees, which makes heat utilization inefficient, especially for electricity production. And we are intending to increase the gas temperature as much as possible, initially up to 250 degrees, which both reduces gas volume and enables more efficient heat collection. We will install heat exchangers that enables to both test out an organic Rankine cycle to produce electricity and to use the remaining collected heat for local heating of the plant or for surrounding customers. The HEX also reduces the gas volume of the gas treatment center and reduces the size of the center and energy needs for fans and cleaning. So we have now had 6 test cells in operation for some years, and we will now test this out in an industrial scale pilot with 60 cells in a new plant at our existing symmetric farmer in Norway. The pilot is located to the right in the picture. The Norwegian government supports 40% of this 450 million euro investment cost through the Energy and Climate Fund called Enova. This has been decisive for the realization of the pilot. Without this grant, the pilot would not have been realized due to the high cost and risk. So this shows how important government support is for industrialization of new innovations. The Enova grant has been approved by the EFTA Surveillance Agency as the balancing test of state aid versus benefits to the society was found to be positive. We have taken on the obligation to make the technology available to the market by licensing, which we might not have done without the Enova grant. So we expect the production here to start up in 2 years' time and hope to have it verified 2 years later. So this leads to the last slide, sort of the impact economically to a project. So we expect to reduce specific investment costs by 5 to 10%, reduce the specific energy consumption by 10 to 15%, and improve the profitability of new projects with 2 to 3 percentage points. So the full-scale pipeline requires an investment cost of approximately $3 billion. The Hull 4E technology will hence improve the NPV by $300 to $400 million for one single project. And the project often includes 2 pipelines and also investments in a power plant. So it's relatively energy capital-intensive industries and investments. Improved technology increases the possibility of expansions in Norway. For a full-scale smelter at Farmley based on hydropower, the CO2 emissions will be 4.5 million tons lower than for the total power-based smelter in China. This corresponds to approximately 10% of Norway's present total gas emissions. This shows the total energy used for aluminum electrolysis worldwide, and it changed since 2000. And if our technology were to be used worldwide, the global electricity saving in 2020 will be 150 to 200 terawatt hours. Of course, any technology deployment will in reality take much longer. So, I hope that this has given you an insight into our ambitions to be more energy efficient and the role of aluminium to be part of the solution. Our tagline is Infinite Aluminium, as Hydro is here to stay, as is also our metal. So I hope by this that you share in our excitement regarding the future prospects for the aluminium industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, let's see if there are first any questions or comments among the members of the panel. Do you have any issues to call about or discuss between you? Yeah.
Just one issue of terminology. I don't like the idea that there's been a decoupling from energy use from the economy. Maybe it wasn't meant quite that way, but a lot of people use it to say it's decoupling. That's not decoupling. Bigger economies use more energy. Bigger companies producing more output use more energy. We see with the macroeconomic fluctuations of our economy, the use of energy goes down. What's been happening in the U.S. is the rate of innovation towards energy efficiency it's been increasing at about the same rate that the economy is growing. So you see ups and downs in the use of energy, even though in the last 14 years, on the average, it hasn't been increased. So I think there's been absolutely, it's still tightly coupled between energy use and the economy. with a gradual process of changing the ratios on the factor proportions.
You would like to respond to that?
Yeah, right. So I can't remember exactly what I said, but maybe I was being a bit loose in my terminology. I think what I'd say is that economic growth has been decoupled from energy consumption growth at a macro level. So if you look at the last 10 years, economic growth has occurred or not, and energy consumption growth has definitely not occurred. So from an empirical perspective, you could perhaps use that term. But anyway, we can discuss that later, perhaps in the bar. I had a sort of question actually for the rest of the panel. Obviously, we've seen reductions in energy prices over the last year, particularly oil prices, and one would expect, well, gas prices have started to fall, we'd expect them to fall as well further, given the coupling of some gas prices to oil prices, and then perhaps some knock-on effect on electricity prices too. So given, Jim, particularly the emphasis you put on economic drivers driving the private sector to make decisions, and given the overriding need from a policy perspective to see more energy efficiency if we're going to achieve our societal objectives, what's your sort of feeling as I want to write my next energy efficiency market report on the outlook for energy efficiency given price movements? And perhaps I could also just ask a colleague to the left whether it's going to change the outlook for private sector investment in the sectors he's familiar with.
I actually accepted the same question to Jim, but not as eloquently expressed as you did.
First, we saw historically when energy prices dropped, the rate of reduction in energy use per unit of GDP slowed down. I don't expect that there will be anything different happening this time. There will be a slowdown. However, there's a few things working in the other direction. First, in the U.S., we have the tighter fuel economy standards in the U.S., and that's a regulatory drive, and so that regulatory drive will still exist in the U.S. Second, we're beginning to learn a lot more about behaviorally related interventions. A lot of what was done before were more technology-related interventions, although Energy Star was behaviorally related. As we learn more about the behaviorally related interventions, we have more opportunities for energy efficiency. And then finally, I feel uncomfortable with a lot of the predictions about how much we're going to get, because every single one of the models is based upon existing technologies. Yet, almost all of the big energy efficiency gains came from technologies and practices that we didn't envision 10, 20 years ago. I think that process of innovation is going to continue, so that will help. But the bottom line, I think that the rate of energy efficiency gain will probably be less than it has been in the times of more aggressive policy and high prices.
Torkil, would you respond to the effect that this will have on others?
Yeah, I think for the aluminium sector, high energy prices encourages energy savings, both in the process and also at the customers. So even though high power prices sort of increases our cost, it drives energy efficiency. So indirectly, I think it's actually positive for our sector. And also CO2 pricing is also regarded as being positive as long as it's global level playing field.
Okay, so then we have some 50 minutes for comments and questions from the floor, but I think John Jimison was the first one, so maybe that's the microphone for him.
Thank you very much. Wonderful panel and a terrific topic. I was privileged to be the lead congressional staffer for 4 years when the last energy policy legislation was passed in the States that included many energy efficiency provisions. So I became very acquainted with the fact that there is opposition to energy efficiency among sectors of the economy, such as the home building industry and the real estate industry and others. And the famous McKinsey graph suggested that about half of the energy efficiency potential is profitable. And I remember hearing one economist say to another, if you see a $20 bill lying on the ground, somebody's going to pick it up. And the other one, who knew more about energy efficiency, responded, yes, but if it's 2,000 pennies, that's really the greater analogy, because energy efficiency comes in many little increments with many little transaction costs, and almost every energy efficiency, as Jim suggested, almost every energy efficiency achievement has been an indirect improvement in energy efficiency as a function of a decision made for another purpose. I wanted a new refrigerator. I built a new house. Well, the new house met a higher efficiency code, or the new refrigerator had a higher appliance standard. My question is, how do we deal with the remaining market failures that prevent us from achieving what is actually a very profitable opportunity? The American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy produced an analysis based on 2012. Despite all the achievements we've already had in energy efficiency, their analysis suggested that if we went to the optimum energy technologies, energy consumption technologies throughout our economy, we could have the same level of energy services using 14% of the energy we use today. Now, of course, that's an enormous turnover in capital that we can't do. But that shows the remaining potential. How the key energy market failures that block the achievement of energy efficiency potentials, and there are a number, I would be interested in the panel's response to what they see as the key market failures and what kind of policy can get around those failures.
Can you take a note of that, and we have maybe one or two more questions, so then you could answer them. I think do we have
I was actually going to answer the question that Senator Thomas asked the other members of the panel, and give him a suggestion on what to do on his next report. Because actually, first of all, is to think beyond the IAEE and the lesson learned, how to spread it to the rest of the world. Because as we saw from Jim's picture, the problem now is less the developed economies than the developing, and one of the major issues is doing energy efficiency. In the developing countries are subsidies, pure subsidies. When prices fall, that's the ideal time to remove the subsidies, because it's not as painful. And if all the money that would have been spent on energy use is not spent, get them to spend it on better equipment by doing, like Jim said, the time to do the norms and standards, because again, they were going to spend it before anyway, and they may not realize that they're spending it on something else. So maybe I think that would be a great report and be useful to everybody.
So that was one question to you. But then, did you also raise the hand? Yeah.
I have one question to Torkil and one comment on the Samuel's presentation. Torkil, you showed that there is a 2 to 3% percentage point increase in IRR if new technology is adopted. How optimistic you are the private sector will adopt this technology without any policy support? And regarding Samuel's presentation, I am a great user of IAEE publication. I always use IAEE, and I cited most of the publications in my work. Sometimes I find that IAEE is a bit optimistic about its mitigation potential and the economic attractiveness. I think one of the main components is that the discount rate you use seems very low. I think the private sector uses much higher discount rate, especially the household use a much higher discount rate. And even we know that it's beneficial in the long run for this people who are going to adopt it. I think there should be some discussion about that.
Okay, maybe we should now let the panel answer the first round, and then we can save up. I think the first question was directed to all of you, in fact, and then more specifically the second one. Okay, Jim is going to put up a slide so that we really can answer to most of Jim's.
Okay,
John's
so how to get more of that energy efficiency potential implemented. Well, in the agency there are 25 energy efficiency policy recommendations, and they cover kind of a range of, I guess you might call them externalities or more broadly market failures that need to be addressed. Obviously pricing is really important. There are fossil fuel subsidies, as has been mentioned, and there are those externalities out there that can be better priced into markets if as a, well, depending on which country you're in, but if you are signing up to tackling climate change, for example, then you should be factoring in the cost of CO2 emissions on a more local level than if there are local air pollution issues associated with energy consumption. Then there may be some local solutions, such as the congestion charge that you see in London. Obviously that's aimed at congestion, but it does have a secondary impact on energy consumption. So obviously there's pricing, but pricing on its own is not going to deliver the most efficient outcome, so there are all sorts of information related issues associated with energy efficiency. So policies aimed at providing information to decision makers is very important, and they need to be specific to the decisions they're making. So there are, in the EU recently there's been a mandate that large companies need to have energy audits. That's quite that might not be the sort of policy that could be stomached in other jurisdictions, but that's certainly one way of ensuring that the information reaches those needing to make decisions. And then there are obviously all the transaction costs that need to be overcome, and I guess a general ambivalence amongst many people if the energy costs are a very small proportion of their overall cost of the decision needs to be made. So that's where the kind of standards that we see, like the CAFE standards, if they can be ramped up, then those types of standards policies have been seen to be pretty good at both reducing energy consumption per unit of energy service demand delivered, but also have driven innovation. And we've seen the cost estimates associated with standards-related policies being very high, and the ex-post analysis showing that actually the cost associated with a more efficient refrigerator is actually lower now than it was when the standard was first put in place for a much less efficient refrigerator, for example. So standards. I can ask. There were lots of other questions directed at me, but we maybe just will move on to.
Because we are up to time.
On discount rates, in the analysis I showed, we do vary the discount rate depending on which part of the world the investment's taking place. Discount rates are higher in countries that have lower levels of GDP per capita. But yeah, I think that one could argue that, say, a 4-year payback is, while you might think about it in terms of it as being economically rational from a societal perspective in an OECD country, is not going to be good enough to drive an actual investment decision in that country where, say, a 2-year payback might be required. So it is a theoretical exercise, and if there are no policies aimed at encouraging that investment, then you could argue it's optimistic. I'm going to stop there.
Torkil, would you comment on the payback and the discount?
Well, I can comment on the aluminium technology and the need for support. So what is very important is to have support from the government regarding R&D and innovation, and also actually to have demonstration plans, because it takes a long time and a lot of money involved in this. Once the technology is verified, I think it will be very easily adopted in the market, because it has improvement, lower investment cost, lower energy consumption, lower operating cost. So it's in the early stages of the development where this is very important. Once it's verified, it should be very well received by the market.
Okay, then Jim, then I'll show the slide.
Okay, thank you. First, I'm in a lot of agreement with what John said. One issue, though, is the McKinsey study. I used to show it in talks that I used to give. I stopped because there's too many flaws with it and too many exaggerations of what you can get for free. So I don't like to use that as a reference. It is true that a lot of this energy efficiency things are not the type you just one fell swoop adopt. They gradually get implemented throughout the economy, and therefore there's a lot of opportunities left for this continuing process. But I've tried to summarize a whole group of strategies that we've been looking at Stanford for increasing energy efficiency. And I think the first and foremost is maintaining the vibrant and innovative economy. Since most of the energy efficiency is implemented by the private sector, often nudged by the government, sometimes with some financial support, sometimes with regulation, but it's the private sector doing it, and if you don't have an innovative private sector, it's hard to get these advances. I think that we should, in the U.S., and I won't speak to the rest of the world, start increasing the research and development we do at the federal level for energy. I do have a chart, which is not in this right now, that shows that the amount of federal R&D, non-defense federal R&D, in the energy area has just shrunk them dramatically over time, and I think it's time to start increasing that one. A lot of the strategies are good information provision. There's a lot of things we don't do because we don't have good information, but some of it even if you have the information, you're not going to make a difference. Like, for example, if you put in light emitting diodes in your home, and now somebody gives you good information about how much you can save by turning them off all the time, that will motivate you usually to not turn them off because it's become very inexpensive. So sometimes it's the nudges, it's the jawboning, the choice architecture that ends up making a difference. Stochastic rewards, I find this, I'm going to take a moment more than I should, but I find this fascinating. There's some work that one of the faculty members of Stanford did with Infosys in Bangalore to try to motivate people to come in earlier than they normally would come in. And let me just jump forward. I think I have some pictures about this. I've got a lot of stuff here. Employees were given the chance for an extra month's salary, big number, extra month. They took in the bus a half an hour early, an hour before rush hour. Sounds like a large amount of money. One employee was going to be given that reward at the end of the year, randomly chosen. Well, because it's a big company, the expected value for a ticket was 20 rupees. Nobody in this high-tech company would come in early for 20 rupees. Just insignificant. However, it was randomly given, and they got 15% of the employees to respond to it. So then we said, okay, well that's in India. I mean, how about in U.S.? And we tried it on the Stanford campus to try to motivate faculty and staff to come in earlier than the rush hour or later than the rush hour. And the rewards were much smaller, randomly distributed between 0 between $10 and $100 with the expected value of 10 cents each time. 10 cents, I mean, I would walk across the room and pick up 10 cents. I definitely wouldn't come in early for that. But the random reward changed the pattern of commuting from up in the middle of the rush hour to down afterwards to up just before rush hour, down during rush hour, and up afterwards, where everybody's involved with it. So Stanford faculty and staff were responding to stochastic rewards in ways that's totally irrational. So exploited. So the point is, there's a lot of behavioral issues that you can start doing. By the way, they're doing a similar system now to under contract with the Singapore government for their rapid transit system. So there's a lot of ways we can creatively start getting beyond those barriers which you just absolutely rightly identified.
Thank you very much. One question to the audience. Can you stand another 4, 3, 4, 5 minutes? Can we exceed the time that they did? Because we have 2 burning questions at the back there. First, you will be, you, Jan, the microphone. And then quick questions and quick answers.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for the president. Thanks for the panel. Ian McGill from the University of New South Wales. A little bit surprised by your example, Samuel, of Paris air quality, because if I've read it right, that's actually diesel engines, and action on that to reduce the use of diesel engines might actually make efficiency worse. But a question to both you and Jim. Do you think that electricity industry restructuring, reform, deregulation, liberalisation, whatever you want to call it, in the US and Europe has actually helped or hindered energy efficiency progress?
And then the last question is with you now. Yeah, let's go.
I'm happy not to have a focus on barriers this time. I missed the focus on prices, but I'd like to take another question, and that is, a way to understand support for energy efficiency is that we will have a greater scarcity of energy in the future than what is given credit in everyday decisions. If so, we have to acknowledge that energy efficiency often is accelerated capital replacement or a deepening of capital investments. And the 2 dimensions that come out there that have been ignored here, except for in the hydro presentation, is long time horizon. A long time horizon would single out 2 missing pieces, I think. One is which investment decisions are very long term. And I would say that's our buildings. It is how we build our transportation systems and our cities. And finally, it is our long-term or big technological changes. I think the long term is an important dimension that we push for energy efficiency more than what is justified by present prices.
Yeah, okay. The first question, who would be prepared? Yeah.
I don't, the question was, has the restructuring of electricity systems in the US and other places made a lot of difference in energy use? I don't think it's made a very significant difference in the US except possibly in Texas, because the retail distribution has not been deregulated at all. It's been a wholesale market distribution, as opposed to in New Zealand where you have a retail competition. In Texas, you have a retail competition. Chile, you have a retail competition. Those, they probably have been mixed. I know, say, in your country, Bear Plenty Electricity, Bobby, has used energy efficiency, helping customers as a competitive advantage over the bigger electricity. So at the whole, I think it has not been a very fundamental impact one way or the other, because it's mostly been a wholesale deregulation.
very briefly. In Paris, actually, the response has been energy conservation, just you're not allowed to drive in, but also making public transport free, and in the long run, encouraging electric vehicles, so efficiency will improve. And then briefly on the long run, actually I really agree, and I meant to say that when I was responding to the question earlier from the US. I think one of the key things, particularly say on the buildings retrofit side, is being able to look to the long run and encourage the building of a supply chain, a market supply chain that can deliver retrofitting in a way that it can't do now. So I totally agree that there's a policy response.
I think we have to leave it to Torkil now. Do you have a comment? Okay, then
I agree the long term, but in this, the companies I've worked with, they actually look at the futures markets to get some estimate of the longer term price. And when people say energy prices invariably going up, they look at the futures market and the futures market say fairly flat, they figure, well, anybody who knows what the energy prices are going to be in the future, different than the oil market, than the futures market say, they shouldn't ever have to work for a living because they can suck so much money out of those financial markets. So most people I know deal with, do look at the long term as far as you can by looking at the financial markets and take that into account, the long-term investments, including buildings.
Okay, I think we don't give the panel a big hand. I think this has been wonderful.